The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And Dave.
We're doing take one for now.
For now.
Hopefully we won't
take
take
one. This is going to be a one-taker. All right. We have another.
It takes two, baby.
Sometimes. But this is not a two-take Charlie, all right?
Two-take Charlie.
This is a one-take McGee. Deal with it. Yeah. Whatever. It works.
A three-take Thumbelina? Like, I don't know.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
That's great. We have another fun episode for you folks today. We're in full spoiler season, so we've got some new cards to talk about. This new mechanics mainly is what we're going to be focusing on in this episode. And then talk a little bit about the upcoming Pro Tour due to some drama that is, erupting from it. Then we will move on to our competitive segment. There are a couple of GPs that happened over the weekend as well as a Open. So we want to talk about all of that. And then we have a question of the week. And we will likely be skipping next week due to the holiday and everything like that. So we wanted to make sure that we talk about Modern. So we'll do that within the Dallas Open discussion. And then we'll kind of move on out and talk about what is happening over the weekend. It's very light. And then our normal closing stuff. So first and foremost, let's get into the community segment. So like I said, we are in full Eldritch Moon spoiler territory at this point in time.
Yeah, they finally revealed Jon Snow's... is that...
That's not... That's a different thing. That would be the Game of Thrones.
So we shouldn't talk about how Cersei's his mom?
Yeah, that would be a really big spoiler, and people would be very upset.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Especially since she murdered him, so...
Oh, man, that's really weird.
I don't know. This whole season's been really, timey-wimey.
I was just glad they finally introduced the teleporter machine, so at least we knew how she got to the North.
I'm glad that we finally established that this is actually just post-apocalyptic Earth.
Yeah,
and they finally settled that discussion, too.
All the X-Men are there.
Every single one of them. Anyway, in case you're wondering, we were all joking. None of those things actually happened on Game of Thrones, except for one.
Except for the teleporter. That's actually...
that actually is a point of contention. But no, anyway, so what we wanted to focus on at this point in time, we're obviously going to do our traditional, very, very long, spoiler, review. But we wanted to focus on the new mechanics and the returning mechanics that are going to be within Eldritch Moon. So let's first get started with some of the new and exciting mechanics. Starting off with probably the most controversial one, Meld. So this is, if you have been keeping track of, cards before they...
Keep talking.
Before they came out, we had the Handweir, the Writhing Township. We actually know now that that is a Meld card. And they have since, released the two cards that basically turn into this card. And I do say that, I mean two cards that turn into this card. That's basically what the Meld mechanic is. It's, sort of what the BFN, the big furry monster.
Yes.
Basically, but instead of, side by side, they're sort of, you flip them on their back. Of the card and actually stack them. What am I thinking? Horizontally? Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Horizontally, and they form the. Yeah, I kind of slurred that a little bit.
Horizontally.
And they form the actual card on the back of them. So this is something that we kind of foresaw, I guess you could say, with that weird Endbringer slip up that they had, where there were two cards that you put them and they formed an Endbringer with a weird transformation symbol that didn't make any sense. But now it all makes sense. So while we would, definitely like to note that, there are other ones, we wanted to specifically talk about the legendary angels that are a Meld card. Now, we've all seen the horrifying Nightmare Fuel art of this card. But now we know that it's actually, why it's like this, it's two cards shoved together. Specifically two very famous angels shoved together. The first one that we want to talk about, I think, is Gisela, the Broken Blade. Because this is the mythic rare one. This is the card that has definitely been pushed from the looks of it. It is 2 generic white for a 4/3 angel with flying, first strike, and lifelink. That is good already. That is a mini Baneslayer Angel, as many people have been comparing it to. And then it has this string of text. So it says at the beginning of your end step, if you both own and control Gisela, the Broken Blade, and a creature named Bruna, the Fading Light, exile them, and then meld them into Priscilla, the Voice of Nightmares. So before we, move on to what Priscilla is, let's read Bruna. So Bruna is the Fading Light. It is 5 generic white for an angel horror. And then Gisela's also an angel horror as well. And they're both legendary. For 5/7 flying creature with vigilance, it's pretty good. And it says when you cast Bruna, you may return target angel or human creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So Bruna basically can fetch your, Gisela if she's in the graveyard. And this one's actually rare, so they're not both mythic rares, which I think is probably the right choice to make. Like having both these cards be mythic rares would have been, if it is constructed playable, would have been terrible for the secondary market. So now we've talked about both the pieces. Let's talk about what they make. Brizella, the Voice of Nightmares. Trust me, that is an accurate title for this card. It is a 9/10 with flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink. Whew. It's pretty darn good. And then your opponents can't cast spells with converted mana cost 3 or less. So no Reflector Mage.
That's an insane ability.
Yeah, no. And you're going through things and being like, well, what does it really stop? A lot of removal.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, a lot, basically. If you are able to pull this off in constructed, God forbid you're able to pull this off unlimited, you're probably not losing. Now, I mean, it's not indestructible. You can still clear it with a Wrath spell or something like that. Or is there anything else that sees constructive play?
Yeah, I think Planar Outburst is the only one that I could think
Planar
of
Outburst.
in Standard that actually handles
You used
this.
to have Utter End. Sad times.
Oh, no. Sadly, you can't anguishly unmake this
Which
card.
is probably flavorful, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I'm not really sure.
I mean, there are a lot of there's what's the 6-mana one that exiles a creature in a land?
Oh, yeah.
Grove of Desolation does
Yeah,
that.
you can-
That's seen some very fringe play, but yeah, I don't know.
So,
Quarantine Field, right? As long as you
Okay.
put enough, because you have to pay 4 mana to exile
yeah.
one, so Quarantine Field gets
Could
there.
you do a Awoken Ruinous Path?
That doesn't change the CMC of the
Okay,
spell.
all right. I
That's
didn't
one
know.
of those weird ones. It doesn't change the CMC.
Right.
In any case, you're going to have to play some specific, if this is constructed playable, which I'm not entirely sure that it is, you're going to have to play some very specific cards if you want to deal with it.
So I want to mention the flavor text on this card too. You haven't seen. So the art is horrifying. We can't do it justice. I've said before, it looks like the Sieth if you played Final Fantasy 13. But it says upon discovering what had become of her sisters, Sigarda could only weep. And Sigarda was the only one who thought the angels were acting weird in the first place. Avacyn came up and was like, "Hey, we're starting a gang. We're gonna beat up humans. You want to join?" And Sigarda's like, I don't think we're supposed to do that.
I kind of like the humans.
Yeah,
so...
I thought we were supposed to. All right, you know what? That's cool. You guys do your thing. And then now she's like, I wonder where Bruna and just oh my god. It's Sigarda openly vomiting in the air, just oh,
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad thing now. So this meld trigger happens at the beginning of your end step. If you control both creatures, control and own both creatures, very important. You can't steal one and have your own, and then it
because that would make a lot of sense. Because then you have this creature, and then if it does get bounced somehow,
right? It's real awkward. So now, of course, this is still 2 cards, so there are some interesting interactions that do happen. If you ever put Brizella on top of a library, the person gets to choose how those cards go on top of their library. Because it is still 2 separate cards.
Fair enough.
If it gets bounced to your hand, you bounce both cards back to your hand. There's some other if it gets exiled, it unmelds. So there's a card. There's an Otherworldly Journey pseudo reprint in this.
That card costs 2 though, right?
Yeah,
I guess you can do it to yourself.
Yeah, and that they would come back and they would both basically come back. I think how they wrote it with
As creatures, both of us
puzzle counters on them. So there's some fairly interesting things out of the way these cards interact, but it's fairly logical when you kind of break it down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people negative on this mechanic. I've heard more than a few Exodia jokes already. Which, if you don't know what Exodia is, that's you have to develop 5 pieces to put it together in Yu-Gi-Oh. But I do think they even sort of said that this mechanic is probably going to be pretty contentious, and there's only 3 meld cards, so 6 total cards with the mechanic. So I don't think that you'll see it too much. It's not going to come together unlimited all that often.
Well, especially not this one.
Well,
this one's probably. I mean, I'm sure it will at some point somewhere.
Yeah, someone will. But, I guess your most likely cases of this happening will probably be pre-release.
Yeah, the black meld cards are probably those are the commons. Yeah. Those ones.
But it does do a good job of conveying the flavor of what's going on. Because we've seen a couple of cases of how like creatures and like animals are being combined. You have a rider that like. It becomes a horse, like it's a horse and a guy, and the guy's riding the horse, and all of a sudden it's like a horse guy. Like that's not a joke, that's a thing. And there's one like a fisherman, and all of a sudden it becomes like a fish guy. So
he's a fish guy, but like his
horseman, fishman.
His lure is just
horseman,
a head.
fishman, merman, if you will. Nope, not a merman. Actually,
no, definitely not.
So yeah, you see the flavor of like Emrakul just making everything kiss.
Yes, he's just a very tenderly matchmaker.
She,
excuse me. You're
matchmaker, make me a... Oh, God, not that.
Never that. All right. So, moving on from Meld, we also have Emerge. And the card that we want to talk about here for Emerge is one that actually just got previewed today and is actually, fairly cool. So, it is called Elder Deep Fiend. It is a 8 generic 5/6 Eldrazi octopus, just tentacles, just everywhere.
Tentacles for days.
Tentacles on tentacles on tentacles. So it says flash. I mean that's pretty good. And it says when you cast Eldrazi Deep Fiend, tap up to 4 target permanents. Now it has Emerge, and it says Emerge 5 generic blue. It says you may cast the spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost reduced by that creature's converted mana cost. So basically, if you were to sacrifice something that was CMC 5, you would just be able to flash this in for blue.
So you sack your Reality Smasher.
Yeah.
Play this for 2 blue. Now, there's still quite a cost associated with that, obviously.
It lines up some cool like styles of play though, where you can like make an attack that looks like bad, and then all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I do think it's really interesting how so this mechanic feels like exploit to me. Like they were trying to cover similar ground where you sacrifice a creature for an effect, but this feels much more flavorful to me on this plane because this feels like summoning, like quite literally, like a cultist sacrifices himself to summon the monster, quite literally pulling the Elder Deep Fiend, which is flavorfully named as well. So I think that's cool. The art on this, to me, I mentioned this to you guys, is insane. Like they have them like in the moonlight on the ocean, and like the little like beams of moonlight coming down are awesome. Like makes some cool lighting.
He also has a tentacle puppet.
He does also have a tentacle puppet. I hope he's like Independence Day talking to him through that too. But so I'm trying to mix all the sci-fi together. So he's using it like Independence Day to talk, but they're using the Mars attacks tactics. We're like, we come in peace. Do not run. We want to hug you.
I don't think anyone could misconstrue that thing coming in peace.
But the last thing I want to mention is that this is a really blue card.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it has flash, it taps things, and you don't have to pay blue mana to cast it.
Yeah.
And that's weird. Like
that's the hallmark of good blue cards.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is a very good blue card.
Dave, that was well done. You're not wrong.
Don't pay any mana.
Well, that's not what I said. It just doesn't pay any blue mana.
Sure.
And I think that's a little bit weird. I think they tried really hard to not cross too hard into, like, when you had pure colorless ones, like Reality Smasher, like, you could argue that it was reddish, but it was a colorless creature. It didn't, like, do anything too specific besides, like, attack. Thought-Knot Seer got a little more awkward. So some of this is stretching a little bit. Like, we obviously want it to be blue. That's why we gave it a blue emerge cost. But any deck being able to cast this is just weird. Like, it's going to feel bad and limited when your, like, mono-white opponent, like, goes, like, end of turn, flash this and tap your team. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have this effect. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
I mean, I think this one, like, if we see, I don't think we'll see many more emerge cards that have flash on them. But man, having flash on it makes it real powerful. You're like, oh, kill your dude. Like, can you imagine someone be like, kill your reality smasher, discard this spell, and you're like, oh, cool, flash this in, sack this actually, and
I mean, and tapping permanents is crazy because you do this in combat.
Yeah.
Like, you can just like tap all their lands. Like, I'm going to make this block. You don't get to play a creature second main. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, when I first saw this card, I thought it was just tap 4 creatures. I was like, okay, that's look like a cool
No,
card. Yeah, tap for
permanents.
permanence is that's the real deal.
yeah, I think
And
this card,
also tap things up to serve them up to Nahiri. Just throwing it out there. Just saying.
yeah, I think
Tap some weird
Tap
things.
them artifacts.
I think this card's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I like it too.
It's interesting because you're like, well, I mean, it's something you can slot into anywhere. Like, you don't even have to be playing blue, and I'm pretty excited. I think this will probably see standard play at the very least. I could see it.
I'm
like-
not sure yet.
In like a ramp deck or some persuasion. I
not-
can see it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the card is also playable, but it's one of those cards that will take a very specific thing that wants this effect, and it won't be like you're not playing 4 of these. But
Oh no, I
any
wouldn't say that.
large creature with flash that has that kind of effect, I think compare that card flash versus non-flash. It goes from like bulk rare to I think definitely playable.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I actually just thought of this because I was looking over the spoiler here. So the recent rule change that they made with the transform cards about how they maintain their mana cost even when they're transformed, you might come into play with some of these emerge cards.
You're not wrong, and it may have been one of the reasons they reconsidered it. Which is
Right. It'd be awkward if you had a transformed card that costs 5 or something. That's like, oh no, it's just 0 now.
Right.
Oh,
And you'll even see with like some of these cards, like this one even sees a cost reduction, even if you're just sacrificing a token. It does require different mana considerations, but it's still
so
cheaper.
a token will still be 0, but a copy of a creature,
Right.
Like a token copy of a creature has a mana cost, but just a token does not. Something to remember.
Yeah, very 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 true.
These are all little kind of, I don't know.
Well, so you kiki jiki something, and then you sacrifice your jiki
Right.
copy.
Right, this all makes sense. Anyway, the last mechanic that we want to bring up that is new is escalate. So this is I think a lot of people will kind of like this mechanic because it's modal, and as we all know, modal mechanics are fairly favored. You get to pick and choose how you want your spell to kind of resolve, basically. And the card that we want to talk about is Blessed Alliance, and it reads 1 and a white for an instant. It says escalate, escalate 2. It says pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. So if you don't choose another mode, it is 1 and a white. If you choose 2 modes, it is 3 generic white. Correct?
Yeah.
And then if you choose, this one has 3 modes. So if you choose all 3 modes, then it's going to be 5 generic white.
Yep.
Correct.
Reading it in a Ron Burgundy accent is entirely optional.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I mean, you can when you announce it. That's
It depends on how quickly you tap
completely
your mana.
fine.
Like if you tapped it really slowly, then you didn't escalate quickly. But if you tapped it really fast,
Yeah.
I didn't see where I was going there, Dave.
No, it was good. It was
What
great.
did you see?
Yeah. Hopefully, Brick will kill a guy with a trident. So the modes on this spell are target player gains 4 life, untap up to 2 target creatures, and then target opponent sacrifices an attacking creature. So all those modes are relevant depending on what is actually going on, which is really awesome to see. And fun fact: this is a way to potentially kill a Emrakul. If that's the only thing they're attacking with.
It's true.
Which is fairly interesting. But this spell is really nice. It scales, for as long as the game goes on, and it's sort of a main deck life gain spell, which you can play without reasonably feeling terrible about it. And yeah, I think this card's fine, and I hope I want to see like a whole cycle that's like this. And I think we have a black one that's very similar to this. I think it only has 2 modes though.
Yeah, the target creature gets +1/+1, the target creature gets -1/-1, and even that card's spicy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think what they said, what they were going to do is the common ones were only going to have 2 2 different modes. Uncommons have 3, and then I'm assuming if we get any rares, it'll have 4 different modes that you could choose from.
Confluences?
We haven't seen a rare one yet, but
yeah. And then I think the colors that escalate is in I think Sam Stoddard was talking about on Twitter today, but I forgot to
white, green, and black.
Maybe. Anyway,
right now we only have a black and a white one.
Right.
So.
I really like this mechanic. It sits really well in between like replicate and multi-kicker. So like replicate would allow you to get the same effect for multiple times you pay the cost, and multi-kicker lets you add effects to a base effect.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is awesome in the middle. You can choose whatever modes you want, but you can't copy the same mode. But like your spells get better. Like each one of these modes could be fine at 2 mana. Like an easier to cast celestial flare is just great. Untapping creatures is a really good combat trick, but like in those dire situations where you have a ton of mana, like gaining 4 life, untapping 2 blockers, and killing a guy, all of a sudden like that's really good. You might maybe if you had replicate, you could just gain 12 life, but I don't know if anybody's playing that card. So the diversity of the modal options with this ability make me excited for the design space. It's like it has a very small wedge in between these other 2 abilities, but I think it's sweet.
Yeah, and like a twine is another one of those things where like you can pay more mana and get a combined effect, or you can pay a certain amount of mana and pick one. So I think this is a great mechanic. I'm excited to see like what else we see and like what kind of rares we get, if any. So
yeah, I mean, this card reminds me a lot of. And I can't think of the card's name. What was the card from? Was it Fate Reforged?
We played a ton of it. Now I can't think of it.
Valor Stance.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Valor Stance, where each mode on its own isn't going to be that great, but like having the option, and that flexibility, it's just like it's just the classic charms throughout Magic history.
Mm-hmm.
Just the flexibility just makes card as a whole a lot better than each of these individual abilities.
Yeah, exactly. You have options. So that's it for new mechanics. We do have returning mechanics. The first one's going to be double face cards. So we will have double face cards.
Meld didn't teach you that already.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, I mean all the Meld cards are obviously double face cards, but we have some more traditional double face cards. So we do have obviously the werewolf that we talked about. We talked about, but I don't think made the episode. We did talk about it.
At some point, we did talk about
it. But that's the only like traditional werewolf card, I believe, that has been released. But I think it's the only one that's actually in the set. I think all the other ones are going to be the Eldrazi flip cards.
Yeah, there's a werewolf that has there's a werewolf that's one-sided, which is interesting.
There are multiple werewolves that are one-sided and they flip into Eldrazi werewolves.
Yeah.
And they all have, I think, you pay an amount of mana and they flip. So
the art on some of these things
is just horrifying.
Oh my god.
So I think for these particular Eldrazi werewolves, I think people have been comparing it to monsters, which you pay a certain amount of mana and you get a bigger creature or what have you, which I think is a fair comparison to make. I think the one that got released today is the 2/1 in green with no downside.
Yeah, Kessig Prowler. I like this card. I have it pulled up. Do you want me to?
Yeah, you can go ahead and read it.
So Kessig Prowler costs a green. It's a werewolf horror for 2/1. Doesn't have any drawbacks, so you can just play it as a 1-mana 2/1. And it also has the ability of 4 colorless and a green to transform it. So you transform it and it becomes Sinuous Predator, which is a 4/4, can't be blocked by more than one creature. It's an Eldrazi werewolf. So you can imagine what that looks like.
Hint, it's not good.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good.
I mean, I think this is a perfectly fine card at 1-mana 2/1. Green doesn't really get too many of those. And just having the option to upgrade it into a larger creature.
No, that's definitely true, because I'm trying to think, isn't is it Jungle Lion?
Yeah.
He's playing cubes still because of that?
Not in my cube, but in some cubes.
I'm saying some cubes, because there's not many of that card. So
you had the one from was it Dryad Militant? Was probably the most recent one. That was the hybrid white-green one. But I mean, in some ways, this is better than that because you can actually just upgrade it to a 4/4. You drop Dryad Militant, in turn 6, you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
this can actually be a threat.
Yeah, green's got a couple cards like that in the set. Like, because there's a Gnarlwood Dryad, not to just randomly jump, but I just happen to see it here. The 1/1 for green, it's a Dryad horror with Death Touch, but it has Delirium, which is another returning mechanic. So there, I tied it in.
There you go. I'm proud.
And if you have met Delirium, which is still the same trigger for more cards of different types, it gets +2/+2.
Yeah.
So like
3/3 Death Touch for 1 is pretty good.
So this is like really close to like when I say really close, I mean design wise. So calm down, but to Nimble Mongoose, which had a threshold trigger to become a 3/3, and this one has like Delirium, which is the set's threshold to do that. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like that card's gonna be super good and limited.
One with Death Touch and colors that aren't black are always fine.
Yeah.
So.
And then
They're good in black anyways, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. The only other returning mechanic that we haven't talked about is Madness. Things still be pretty mad there on Innistrad. And the one card that we do want to talk about that does have Madness and is fairly spicy is the Voldaran Pariah. Mm-hmm. This card is 3 generic black for a 3/3 flyer. And then it has sacrifice 3 other cards to transform it, and it has a madness card, madness cost of black. So this is actually a double face card and a madness card. Now on the back, it's Abolisher of Bloodlines. It is a flying 6/5 Eldrazi vampire. It's colorless, and it says when this creature transforms into this form, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. Wow, that is a fairly strong payoff for sure. I mean, sacrificing 3 other creatures you control is a fairly steep cost, but I mean it's a activated ability. It's not like you get to pick and choose when you want to do this, and madnessing this out on turn 3 is fairly good if you find a way to do that. But I don't think there is one technically. I guess you could have
you could do
you could have like the God Draw and like have both all your black red duels coming on taps and. Play the turn 2 1/3 vampire.
No, you just need the 2/1.
Falcon Wrath does it in mono black. Jeez.
Yeah, you could do that as well.
I know that card hasn't seen any play, so it's easy to forget.
It's pretty close.
It's easy to forget. But yeah,
the card I thought of immediately when I saw this card was called the Bloodline, which is the black and colorless enchantment from Shadows that you could discard a card to put a 1/1 vampire with a lifelink into the battlefield. And I thought like that card was close to playable already because like consistent discard outlets are very good, making tokens is very good, and like if you're madnessing out vampires like this, and you also happen to get a bunch of 1/1 tokens you could throw away, I could see playing this. Now is that a big enough hoop to jump through to actually want to play in Constructed? Probably not. But this will happen in Limited, and it will be sweet.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I like the card. I like the design of the card. I think it's sweet. I don't know if it's going to be constructed playable just because it's such a steep cost, and if your opponent ever has mana untapped, you're probably not going to want to risk getting 4 for 1 to whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's going to be a bad time.
But yeah, I mean, if you do get to get this, I mean, you could probably wipe out most of their board if they're sacrificing 3 creatures, and you're left with a 6/5 flyer. So for potentially 3 mana. So I mean, has a lot of upside, but you got to be careful with it.
Yeah, it's certainly a gamble. So let's go ahead and talk about just a few other cards here, just to kind of sum up our Eldritch Moon discussion. I know there are a couple of cards that are similar to cards that we've had previously in Magic's history. The first one is Take Inventory. I believe that we want to talk about. And this card's fairly interesting because it might remind you of a card called Accumulated Knowledge.
And if you've not heard of that card before, you're in for a treat.
So 1 in a blue, sorcery. It says, draw a card. Then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Take Inventory in your graveyard. Now, this card is a bit of a downgrade from Accumulated Knowledge. It is not an instant, and it does not count your opponent's graveyard as well as your own. But card is still good. It's still, for standard, it still says 1 in a blue, draw card, which, hey, and then, the other text, that's pretty good as well.
Let me tell you, Accumulated Knowledge counting both players' graveyards was dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really was.
If you were both playing for that card, it was just really dumb.
Yeah, especially at instant speed.
The
Cool.
last person to cast one felt real good though.
You didn't want to be the guy that cast it first. You're like, oh, I only get one.
No, you're going to get 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so good blue card. We can kind of come down on that. It's good to see it kind
Card
of.
that says draw a card.
Yeah.
Like, that's my point of sticking. Like, it doesn't say like look at the top 2 and no, just draw a card, and maybe draw some more cards
Yeah, maybe
because it's a
potentially.
party.
Yeah,
It's a party. I'm a party guy.
yeah, you're invited to my card drawing party.
You could potentially draw 4 cards for 2 mana.
That's
When was the
insane.
last time we were able to do that in Standard?
Treasure Cruise.
I was going to
Related
say
knowledge.
It's close.
yeah, Treasure Cruise.
Ancestral a little bit better. But
I mean, like Dig Through Time kind of gave you selection, so you always got like the 2 best cards.
It was, shared... What was that card from Rise of the Eldrazi? Shared Discovery?
Sure.
Something like that? Tap 4 creatures or something? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Anyway, so we have another card that is, in the same vein as Take Inventory. It's called Galvanic Bombardment, and it's 1 red for an instant. It says this card deals X damage to target creature, where X is 2, plus the number of cards named Galvanic Bombardment in your graveyard. So this is similar to Kindle, which also, came out the same time that we got Accumulated Knowledge. Little worse. Does not say or player. Unfortunate. Would have been real good though. Would have been real good in Modern. So,
But hey, it only costs 1 mana.
it is 1 mana.
So it's probably closest to Fiery Impulse in Standard.
Correct. It's
That's-
competing for the same space for sure.
It's another, 1 mana instant that only deals damage to creatures.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's more.
Again, this is 4 damage, 1 mana. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're running less than 4, then Fiery Impulse is probably the way you're going to want to go.
Yes.
If you want 4 of this card, maybe Galvanic Bombardment is better.
I think if you are running like you want to have 4 of deal 2 damage, I think you always are going to be running this though. In my opinion, I think this is where you start off.
They're only going to be in Standard together for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, the next set that comes out, Fire Impulse is going to rotate. So.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's an interesting, I guess, version of that style of card.
So, if this was just a Kindle reprint that didn't have like opponent, like it just said your graveyard, but everything else about Kindle stuck, would have been too strong.
Would it have?
I don't know. It's really awkward that we continue to print all these burn spells that can't hit players.
The burn spells that aren't actually burn spells.
But I don't know.
Because I mean, it would be. I think it'd be really strong potentially modern for a modern burn. So I don't know if that's how much of a consideration that is, but I mean, Kindle is 1 in a red, so that would be the difference that we're looking at.
Yeah, Kindle was never constructed playable though.
I mean, Kindle or like what Flame Burst also.
Flame
never
Burst,
saw
yeah,
any
it
sort
was-
of play.
Right.
Interesting.
They're just not like that first one is so bad. Like 2 mana for 2
Or
damage
shock,
is
yeah.
just it's shock that costs twice as much. It's like the first one is so bad, whereas like cycling. So take Inventory for example. It's like okay, the first one cycles, which isn't that bad.
Right.
You're not down a card. And then everyone after that is really good. Like even if you're just paying 2 and drawing 2,
Right.
it's pretty good.
That's why like this card could have never said like 1 red, creature player like.
Oh, that would be insane.
Exactly. Yeah, it would just be too good.
Yeah,
So,
because like shock is already, it was playable the last time it was in Standard.
yeah.
So.
And it would just like, oh my gosh, it would just ruin Modern Burn. Modern Burn would be way too strong. Cool. But
See, I don't know if that's actually true, but I'll move on from that. You're saying if it was 1 red?
1 red. Deal
I mean, like,
one
If it was just the same thing, but it hit players.
yeah.
I guess like burn is trying to kill you within the first 10 cards, so I feel like the amount of time this would actually do an amount of damage that is relevant to the game, more than 3 or 4, which the average spell does in that deck, is not common.
Well,
and the first one does 2, which is so much worse than your average burn spell in that deck. I actually don't think this would break Modern Burn. Get wrecked.
Yeah.
Nah,
No, it'd be insane for Standard though.
Oh yeah, but Morgan's Modern.
Basically
I want to
Lightning
disagree
Bolt.
with him. I just want to disagree.
No, yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
I disagree. I mean, I agree.
What? You disagree with yourself.
I agree with you disagreeing with you.
Sure.
I don't know anymore.
Let's talk about Thalia.
All right, let's go to Thalia. Thalia actually came out right after we had recorded.
Sounds like a reporter. We now go to Thalia live on the scene. Tentacles everywhere! What happened?
So
It used
we
to just be demons.
so we do have a new Thalia. It's going to be rolling out here in Eldritch Moon. We kind of expected to see her. She's a pretty iconic character from the original Innistrad, so it doesn't make too much of a surprise to see her kind of show up here. But so we have Thalia, Heretic, Cathar, 2 and a white for a legendary creature, human soldier. First strike, hey, 3/2, and 3/2 is the stats on the creature. It says creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. It's real good. It's real strong. Now we've made jokes that a lot of the non-basic lands already do that, so so whatever. But that creature clause and that land clause are still both very, very relevant. It's something that's pretty good to get off of a collected company. I'd like to remind you that that's still a thing. And,
in case you forgot.
PSA.
Yeah, first strike still real good. Still real good when you put some 1/1 counters on it due to your Thalia's lieutenant. Makes sense. Makes sense that lieutenant would be like, hey, Thalia, I'm here to help you out. Here's some 1/1 counters.
I'm just really glad I don't have to look at Eldrazi Thalia.
Oh
That
god,
would be really sad.
yeah, that would be bad.
Rosella's bad enough.
I'm glad that she's resisted the thrall there of good old Mrs. Emrakul. Miss Emrakul. I don't want to presume that she's married to anything.
Well, if she was, they're dead now, so.
I guess that's true. Now
She's just married to a guy named Steve who's on a random plane. She just goes home. It's like, honey, it's been so long. Go. You're the only one that gets me.
You see the real me.
Oh, man. I made you dinner.
It's this plane.
I drew you a bath. It's this ocean.
Oh man, I like Steve.
Steve's good. Steve's a good guy. He
Mr. The Aeons torn. Mr. The Promised End.
Oh man. So this. If you ever watched Dragon Ball Z, one of the last arcs had like this horrible monster who was kind of a kid, and you had Hercule who had a puppy. And he was supposed to fight him, but instead he just made him happy. Like, he and the puppy, like, built a home with them and, like, had good times, and that was how he was winning. So that's what Steve does. He's just like, no, shh.
It's okay.
I know you want to eat that plane, but do you really need to be eating another plane? I don't want hard truth. I know. I don't be the one saying that, but, like...
Listen, this is coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of love. I'm invested in your future, and I just want you to be just as invested in it as well. All right.
Steve was like a really messed up Silver Surfer.
Oh man, that's great. I enjoy this character. Mark Rosewater, you know what to do.
Oh man. Can we? So is this like Mr. the Aeons torn?
Yeah, I smell a Photoshop coming.
Anyway, but to get back to Thalia, card's good. I think we were all pretty at that consensus for sure.
I think it's the only card I've seen. Sorry, David, I'm going to cut you off there. But
No, you can go.
I think it's the only card I've seen so far that definitively says, okay, this is going to affect Standard in some fashion. Because of how good this already seems to be against green-white tokens. Planeswalkers are a lot worse in the presence of Thalia. We're like, I'll make a token. It comes to the play tapped. I'll attack your Planeswalker.
That knight you made was very distracted by my heretical catharing.
I will flash an Avacyn. Cool, she's tapped.
She tripped on the way in. I don't know what to tell you.
Like drunk Avacyn coming for a landing. Like I won't step over you.
Just like face first into the ground.
So I think that alone makes her pretty interesting. The fact, yes, she comes in off of company, but also makes company mirrors miserable. Like, the first Thalia makes every collected company their opponent has, like, so much worse. So, by that metric alone, it may cause decks to diversify a little bit, to not be so stone cold to this little 3/2 that could. So I think she seems to be the most prime time for, primed for standard playability, at least in my opinion.
Just based on what we have right now. I agree.
I think the stats are also like 3/2 first strike. You can attack into a Sylvan Advocate, which is like that card is everywhere right now.
Oh yeah.
And, you don't need any help. You don't need a Thalia's Lieutenant to come in and pump her up in order to attack. She can just attack anyway. It makes cards like Evolving Wilds look like it's already embarrassing. Like if you have to play that card, you're like, all right, I guess I have to play this because the mana's not great. What? Now this comes into play tap too.
Oh, God, it's so
man, I
gross.
gotta wait 2 turns to get my land.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty rough.
Yeah,
It's a rough time to be playing an Evolving Wilds deck.
Yeah, and Mike, you said that this is a card that you think will definitely impact Standard. I agree with that. I think it'll impact Modern as well. I think like being able to cast this on turn 2 off of like a bird or an hierarch, like being able to mess up fetch lands is going to be.
Oh, I definitely agree with
insane.
that. I will say, obviously, Bolt in that format makes it a little trickier, but Bolt's on the downswing right now, so you're probably not wrong. It's going to show up, especially the decks that can cord, because I don't know if you understand this, but when somebody ultimates their Nahiri, and you cord for this,
you go to get Steve. Oh,
yeah.
No, Emrakul. Okay.
Yes, Steve shows up like, "Hey, Emmy, just slow it down."
Just listen, they got a Thalia. It's a real bad situation over there.
But just go back to the hand.
I know that Nahiri got you all angry, summoned you here on sort of false pretenses. I don't know. They called someone in. It was bad.
Let's just go home. I got the season finale of Breaking Bad all queued up. The series finale. I know you hadn't seen it yet. It's waiting for you. We'll just have a nice night in.
Nice night in. We can wear jammies. It's fine.
There's so many leg holes. I hope they're feety pajamas too.
I mean, are there any other kind?
Can we just name this episode Emrakul's Feety Pajamas?
Anyway.
Good card.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap now, too, if you could pre-order it. Last time I checked, it was like $6.
Yeah. And,
this is also the Buy a Box promo?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. But so it probably won't ever be.
The Buy Box promo art's real bad.
Also trash.
Real bad. It's real bad.
I want to talk about one more card here and then move on. We spent a fair amount of time on spoilers here. Can we talk about Unsubstantiate?
Yeah. I'll say another great blue card for Standard.
I'm going to talk this one.
All right.
Unsubstantiate is a blue and a colorless. Blue and a generic.
Yeah.
For instant, return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. So this one's interesting because it's worded like Remand. It can return a spell to its owner's hand. It also has Unsummon attached. Now, unlike Remand, it does not draw a card, therefore it doesn't replace itself. So it is not as good as Remand. But the potential is there for a spell that affects a lot of the different parts of the game, and can also deal with some spells that regular counter magic can't deal with, or normally like I think it was mentioned like uncounterable spells. This can still put back in someone's hand. Remand cannot do that because it says counter. So there's some interesting things with this card. It's sort of simple, and yet has a lot of play to it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tempo card. I mean, being able to, early on being able to, return. I guess you're not really countering a spell, but you're, buying yourself a turn. Not drawing a card like really hurts though. Like, Remand lets you almost time walk your opponent. When you remand something on turn 2 or 3 and they can't cast anything else, then it's just like, oh cool, I just time walked. But this one you're definitely down a card, so it's anybody who's saying
with time walk, you're also down a card. So
no, but you're not though, because then you take a turn. You
then you take a turn and draw a card. But when you cast it, you're down a card.
It's just a delayed. It's a delayed draw trigger until your next draw step.
Okay, fair enough. I misread it.
I mean, I don't think this card's bad, but I think the comparison to Remand is not entirely fair, because Remand is just a dumb card.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody comparing it to Remand is like, man, this is the next Remand. But I think it's
similar in function. Sure, it's similar in function and being able to actually affect the board. Being able to return a creature can come up. 2 mana unsummon is kind of bad, but it's better than not having the option. So
yeah. This is more comparable to like if Venzer forgot himself when he came into play. It was just his effects.
Venzer forgot himself.
Yeah, he's
just the effect. Wait, where's Venzer? I'm coming.
I'm coming.
I will say, we don't have any true tempo decks in the format. We have one of the best tempo cards of all time, though, in this format, which is Reflector Mage. So if there's a chance for you to capitalize on having Reflector Mage and Unsubstantiate in your, and we've already seen a couple of the blue-white flash decks, the decks playing, a number of the rattled chains and those sort of things. Like, I do think this card has a chance to see play, and possibly as a tempo tool, be disgusting. So, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely see some standard play. I don't know if it'll be widespread. I don't know if every deck's going to want it. Probably not.
Well, I mean, not every deck is blue, so by definition.
Well, any deck with blue that that could cast it. You know what I mean. But I think it's definitely an interesting card, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I could be totally off. I mean, maybe it's a 4-off and every blue
we'll just
deck.
have to wait and see. All right, so moving on to the second piece in our community segment, we did want to sort of mention this thing that's kind of happening with Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, which is going to be held in beautiful Australia, where the spiders have life bars and everything wants to kill you. Don't know why you'd want to go there, but I guess you got invited to this very spectacular, Magic tournament. Guess that makes it worth it. Jury's still out on me. But apparently some of the players who will be in attendance for this Pro Tour are having some concerns about potentially having to miss it due to visas being an issue this time around. It is kind of awkward. I know that I just saw it kind of happening on the Twitter sphere in our Magic communities, and I kind of talked to the guys about it. But apparently, they're kind of having issues or concerns between like short term, work visas versus tourist or vacation visas, and like since you're going to a tournament where you could potentially win money, what does that do? And players saying that when there was a Australian GP, they didn't have to have these visas, but apparently they have to now. So. The wait time for these visas being 4 weeks and the Pro Tours in 5 is definitely a huge concern as well. So we have Sam Black, Willie Idol being a couple of people who are very vocal about what's going on, and this hits harder for they have fast track countries, North America, specifically the United States being one of those. And while other places, such as Brazil, may potentially have to wait longer, which isn't really feasible if you're, needing to be somewhere in 5 weeks, or 4 if you're heading up a week early to do testing.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, I feel like if I were qualified for this Pro Tour, and I would be obviously really excited. Like Australia is a place that I would love to visit. Assuming I would survive the visit, but
I mean, you would get there. I don't know if you'd make it out.
Yeah, I might not make it out, but I wouldn't want to have to worry about this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice that they have like locations that people are going to want to visit, and like quote unquote exotic, locations for Pro Tours, and that's great. But if it's going to cause these kinds of issues, it's like, is it really worth it? You know what I mean? Like, you want all the players that are qualified to show up. Somebody who, maybe qualified through an RPTQ, like, yeah, I get to go. And then, I ran into a lot of red tape and maybe I won't get to go. Like, that would be really disappointing. I feel like if that were me. But
yeah, I really no, I'm not going to try and do it. I'm going to be a jerk. Yeah, I agree with you. One thing that was sort of like having gone through this recently and having to get a passport and like go through a bunch of things I never had to go through before. Wizards doesn't do a great job of giving you any sort of guideline. Like, I did all the research into, is there anything I need, especially for Spain, and that even includes things like medical warnings or specific travel places for certain countries. And it seems to me that like Wizards could easily make a guide for this sort of thing. Like, you're going to Australia. There are some things for Australia you may need to pay attention to, including the possibility of needing a visa in addition to your passport. And they don't do that kind of thing. And you could argue, that's not their. They don't have to. But if you're right, Dave, if they should want all of the players who are qualified to be there, especially the names that are your the ones you want to put
high profile pros, yeah.
So they should be helping make this an easier transition, as opposed to being surprised with everyone else. Like, wait, you guys are having troubles? Oh man, no, they should have talked to people. Any sort of government travel system or anything else. They should have had that discussion with them months ago to prepare the player base.
It should have been, honestly, when they thought about, hey, you know what? Let's have a Pro Tour in Australia. Hey, you know what kinds of
Issues could there be?
yeah. What kind of problems could pop up from this?
And I understand that they have like different like they have a lot of subsidiaries and a lot of people that they like. Okay, these people are in charge of getting a venue in this part of the world. So like maybe they don't know immediately these things because it is definitely a line of succession. You know what I mean? Like this and this and this, but someone has to have the foresight to be like, hey, let's make sure our players can get there. You know what I mean? Because when I was to go out Spain, like I said, like I would definitely want to check on medical stuff because you hear about this stuff in the news. You know what I mean? You hear about things like Zika, which obviously has not been in Europe, but it makes you go, okay, I feel like I should check this. And Wizards could go, hey, just so you know, like we're having this GP in Brazil. Just so you know, Brazil has these issues going on. Hey, we're doing this in Australia. Just so you know, and they haven't done that. I don't want to put this all on Wizards alone. Like sometimes things are unforeseen.
Yeah,
but this is frustrating for a number of ways. And yeah, maybe it doesn't stop your high profile players who can even pay for expedited processing. You know what I mean? But it is going to turn a lot of players off from going to a place that they were probably very excited to go to. And that's sad.
Yeah, for sure. And
good.
I didn't have anything more really to say about it. I was going to say for possible, for some other hubbub that's coming out about this from, players kind of, commenting from the peanut gallery. Stay tuned for our question of the week.
Ding.
Yeah. One last thing on this. Hopefully it doesn't prevent too many people from attending.
Yes, correct.
A lot of people are kind of upset about it and be like, well, I may not attend because of all this, but like in the end, we'll see how many people don't actually attend because of it. It might just be a lot of people just complaining that they have to do extra stuff. But again, it shouldn't really be a thing.
No. Yeah, we'll see if there's any sort of fallout that happens when the time arrives for there to be a Pro Tour. All right, so that is everything for the community. Now, before we jump into our competitive segment, I do want to give a shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. Their Modern Summer Classic is definitely coming up. Now, this is a guaranteed 2K prize pool. Now, if we get over 100 people, guaranteed 5K prize pool. Which is awesome. And, this is Modern. This is a huge draw for a lot of people. We have Modern GPs that get oversold, Modern Opens that we'll talk about that get sold out, like Dallas was. So we're definitely expecting, a lot of people to show up. And, the more that show up, the better, because we get a larger prize payout. Not to mention, it's a $30 entry fee. The player meeting will be at 10 a.m. and it's going to be held Saturday, July 9th. And of course, there is an event that's made for this event that'll kind of detail the location of the event and everything like that, as well as the things that I've already mentioned. But it is important to even shout out that if you are a local, or if you want to do some traveling on the weekdays or for F&M, there are going to be several Raikyus, as we like to call them, that will award free entry into the Summer Classic, which is $30 value. And these will be held on July 1st, which will be a Modern F&M, Monday, July 4th, and which will be just a Modern event that they have every Monday at the shop, as well as July 8th, which will be another Modern F&M. So plenty of options for you to kind of go in, test out your sweet Modern deck, and potentially win free entry into the lovely Summer Classic.
I'd like to add also, I didn't put this in the notes, so you wouldn't know, but on Sunday, July 10th, Comic Town is also running a standard format Star City Games IQ
Perfect
in the shop.
That's awesome.
So I believe that one is also $30 entry and 10 o'clock start time. So
awesome.
Come to Columbus, make a weekend of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Come to the hometown of At Your Ends Tap. Moving on.
Step into our dojo.
Let's go ahead and move into our lovely competitive segment. So, again, there were a couple of standard GPs over the weekend. First, let's talk about GP Type A. It had a total of 793 players. And it was won by Yuki Ichikawa playing Bant Company.
One of your favorite players.
Yeah, I really do like him. I've picked him a number of times in Pro Tour, fun drafts and stuff like that. So it's good to see him pick up the W. Some of their notable top 8s include Yuta Takahashi and Li Shitian, both on Bant Company as well. Seemed to be a very popular choice over the weekend. So the top 8 was 4 Band Company, 2 Green White Tokens, 1 Band Humans, and 1 Green Red Ramp, which is a deck that we haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of in recent, but looks like it was good enough to show up here in the top 8. Now I know that we were talking about this before the show, but when we take a look at the day 2 metagame breakdown, this was official. Like, is this a top 100 or is this just like a day 2 metagame?
No,
breakdown?
this is like actual day 2. Like if
geez.
you look at it, there's actually like graphs and stuff.
Oh man,
this one's wild.
This is great. So we have 50% of the decks in day 2 being either Bant Company, Bant Humans, or Green White Tokens. So one of the those combined 3 archetype numbers is half the field, which is kind of crazy. I mean, obviously there can be slight variations between each of these archetypes. You can look at 10 of the same lists, and like 7 will be different in some variation. But I mean, they're both the same essential core when you're looking throughout this. And it's kind of crazy that the format has kind of like boiled down to this, but it's not necessarily surprising. I feel like this is around the time that we're starting to see like the best decks just be the best decks, and these decks have just shown themselves to be very consistent in what they do.
Yeah, I mean these 3 decks are all very powerful and have powerful synergies.
That are just hard to
shells,
they're just hard to disrupt.
I mean, whether it's collected company with creatures or it's your planeswalkers.
What a crazy combo that is! Collected company plus creatures turns out real good.
It turns out, exactly. Green White Tokens has gone pretty much wire to wire since the last Pro Tour, and up until this Pro Tour. I'm sure it'll just continue to be the best deck. So hopefully Eldritch Moon can shake things up a little bit, maybe make some of the other colors a little bit better, and maybe black and red can kind of catch up.
No.
Green has just been so good now for so long. We had the reign of Abzan, like Abzan just mid range, and Abzan aggro, and Abzan control.
Green white specifically. That was green white. 2/3.
Well, then we had Bant Company that was like really good at the end of the last format.
Still green white.
And
Interesting.
And into Green White Tokens and more Bant Company. 2 versions of Bant Company actually. So
I really miss the Tucker Red, guys. Man, I really miss that deck.
And the amazing thing, like we talk about Bant Company so much
also
at the beginning
green.
of the format.
Green. That's all right though.
It is a testament to Bant Company that it is like consistently Bant Humans and Bant Company, one of the best decks in the format, despite still having horrendous mana. Like, I want you to recognize the mana hasn't gotten better. The deck is still just that much better than all the other decks. Even the decks with perfect mana, they're just not beating it.
Yeah.
And it's very sad.
I mean, I'm sorry. Instant Speed Reflector Mage is just really good.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's just real good. So I think that the Wizards kind of made that bed now. They got to kind of lie in it.
Yeah, that was a boo-boo.
Yeah. But I mean...
Man, isn't it sweet when an uncommon is up for a ban?
But I mean, like... So, it's honestly, like... So hopefully Eldritch Moon shakes things up. That's what we really want. If that isn't the case, if they're just like, well, we didn't really do much to kind of shift or change this, then once rotation happens, then that's obviously when we're going to get our best change, because that's when Dragons,
Yeah, Dragons is the offending set.
Oh,
still.
for sure.
Like, as good as Reflector Mage is, Dragon's Tarkir is the offending set, because there are 2 cards that make both of these decks really tick, and obviously Collected Company is the major one. But Dromoka's Command is the one that keeps letting green-white decks, like, if you played against that deck a lot, like, their curve is great, but the card that always blows you out every single time is the instant speed removal spell that is better than most of the removal in the format.
Yeah, 100%. So, hopefully, they get something that'll let us combat this bit of a menace. Make some other colors, bolster some of their numbers. I for one,
that mechanic's also in Dragons.
Oh, yes, right. Thank you. I for one want to see some sweet red cards and have a playable red deck. Nothing so far. We have a land. We have a land that's pretty good. It's the other one of the halves of the Writhing Township. But
Yeah.
but it's kind of it so far. But Sam Stoddard was tweeting at some people today, and one of them was Josh Milliken, a notable red player. And he said there was some stuff for red coming out that hasn't been seen yet. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Stott, I love you, but I don't know. I'm doubtful.
You just need some good burn spells that actually hit players. That's
this
the
is
thing that's really missing from the format right now.
Apparently too strong. Apparently too strong, Dave. You're asking for too much. Pick one: creatures or players.
I mean,
not both.
Red has very rarely had actual good creatures. It's more like the burn spells. You need something
Honestly,
to kind of clean up
there's
the
so
game.
many cards that are close right now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you played against any of the red-blue decks that are running around, not the Eldrazi ramp, but like Thunderbreak Regent and like Draconic Roar together are still disgusting. Like, and the 3 damage instant burn spell does still exist in the format. It doesn't always go to the face. The problem is that there's nothing else to fill in the middle anymore. Like, what are you filling it in with right now?
Nothing.
Yeah. Like
Emptiness.
you have an Abbott still?
Despair.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah, man. I just want to play some sweet red cards that we still while we still can. All right.
Hey,
I just want to do what we still can.
I'm playing red cards.
Sure.
Full bushwhackers.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
it.
Congratulations.
And
yeah, that's real great.
yeah, there wasn't much going on in the 9 through 32 list. We do see Ken Yukihiro finished 10th and Yu Watanabe finished 11th. So
Nice.
a couple really good players right outside the top 8.
So you also had the Jun list in top 16 is a thing, and there's a blue red Eldrazi list in the top 16.
Sound like more green decks.
I
Except
do
for
want
Blue-red Eldrazi,
to
I guess.
mention the 20th place list,
Sure.
which is Sun Bows white flyers, white blue flyers, I should say. So this is we've seen this a couple of times, but this one's the ones we've seen like this are either like going real low to the ground, like we've seen with the one that we had the open that was playing like Invocation and Snake Draft, or they're going all up to Dragon Lords. This one has Avacyn, and that's about it. But you have Reflector Mages, Dimensional Infiltrators, Rattle Chains, 4 Void Shatters. So a little more tempo-oriented here. Silumgar Sorcerer, which is playing through Hangerback Walkers. So you can sack them. But the cool thing about Silumgar Sorcerer is it can flip your Avacyn by itself.
Ooh.
Counter your guy, exploit itself, flip my Avacyn on your turn.
Fancy.
I mean, I think that's a cool line that I bet a bunch of people got super blown out by. Just like... yeah, right. Like I'll cast Reflector Mage. I'm actually going to counter that with my Sorcerer, and I'm going to exploit itself. Trigger, and they're like, "What?" You're like, "Oh yeah, my Avacyn's going to flip."
So, did you see the sideboard for this deck?
It's sort of like a control deck.
It could go transformational. So the sideboard is 2 Planar Outburst, 2 Secure the Waste, 3 Jace Vryn's Prodigy, 3 Negate, 2 Narset Transcendent,
Wow.
3 Dragonlord Ojutais. So you can actually board out, your Rattle Chains and Dimensional Infiltrators, and your smaller creatures, then just play this more control game. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that. He finished 20th.
20,
so,
yeah. But I think this is a sort of unique deck, and as I mentioned before, some of these blue, what we mentioned, Unsubstantiate, is the kind of deck that might be able to capitalize on a card like that, or even the spell we talked about that has escalate on it might also be the kind of deck that might want it in a race. So it just sort of like this is the shell where I would say like pay attention to this as we go into the next format, especially since Rattle Chains ostensibly is a card that could get better. We still have a lot of spirits that may or may be spoiled. So
Yeah,
just interesting
for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the same decks over and over. So I'm glad you caught that one because I didn't see that one. But yeah, I mean for the most part, there's just a lot of green-white tokens and banned decks of different varieties showing up here. So
Yeah, I'm trying to look through the top 16. There's not a single black-white control deck in the top 16. Am I right?
that's a little surprising.
Yeah,
I mean Owen Turnwell won the WMCQ last week
Yeah.
with black-white control. So I mean, it's not like it hasn't been putting up results. I think it was a decent chunk of the metagame though.
Okay.
It was. There were 11 in day 2.
That's not that many actually.
Nah. I don't know. But in any case, that deck definitely seems like it's on the downswing, or at least it's just getting drowned out by the number of green decks in the format. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to harp on this, but man, why can't we always get this day 2 metagame breakdown? I love conversion rates too.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Because conversion rates help. Like look at Sultai Control. Didn't do very well at the end, but it had the highest conversion rate by a huge percentage of any of the other decks, and I think that's that's sort of interesting when you're trying to figure out what kind of deck can you fight this metagame with. So, I wish we got more of that. But,
Well, again, I mean, this GP was only 793 players, so
maybe it's easier to quantify, but
well, it's just easier.
maybe
There's just less.
6-3 than day 2. They could do it a little bit easier. Who said that, Morgan? That's really rude.
Whoa, hey, throw me under the bus there, man. That's rude. Jeez, gosh. Anyway, anything else for GP Type A that we wanted to bring up, discuss, talk about, gripe on? Nope.
Nah.
All right. Let's move on to the GP that two of us attended, GP Pittsburgh. It was standard, had a total of 1,378 players. Being there in the room, it seemed fairly well attended, and you still had room to breathe, which was kind of nice.
Being in the same room that the horrific Pez one was also in, this one felt.
Oh yeah, I got to play
better.
Magic day one. It was crazy. So Mike was in the main event. I did side events. I did a side event, I should say. They had a lovely modern showcase, which I played in and played Tron and finished 4-3. Got 33rd place. Oh yeah, it's bad because I won 32nd because it got a better prize payout. But there's only 72 people in the event, so I just had to win twice or once, and I was gonna get paid out regardless. So
it's always nice.
Yeah, very very nice. So I basically waited in line for 8 hours and got 10 packs, but whatever, that was fine. I played a Green Red Tron. It was a good time. Definitely had some unfortunate matchups to combat against. Played
Should have
against.
beaten Infect.
You don't say.
I should have beaten Infect. So that was my punt, but I've only played Green Red Tron a handful of times anyway. So that was a bad line. Played against Ad Nauseam. Which is not a fantastic matchup, and then played against Suicide Zoo and lost as well. That's also not a very good matchup.
I feel like of all the decks in Modern, Tron is probably the most, or at least one of the most, I guess, polarizing decks as far as the matchups. The matchups are either super easy or unwinnable.
Yeah,
there's no in between. It seems like there aren't a lot of games that are there's not a lot of interaction. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's either you just go over the top and you kill them, or you just die on turn 3.
Yeah. It was fun. I really like playing that deck. I like it so much. There's just something that feels great about playing Kara on turn 3. And this is wrong. I should be doing this in Magic, but here I am. And I'm gonna exile one of your permanents, I guess.
Just one of those guys, Morgan.
Yeah, what can I say?
It's a subset of the Magic community.
I was
just you know what? I just want to cast
talk about
Karn.
Modern here in a second, so maybe we should wait until we talk about Modern.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
We'll go back to Modern.
So, Mike, tell us about your experience here at GP Pittsburgh.
I had an average event. I played the Abzan Seasons Pass deck, which Jeff Hoagland took to a top 4 finish at the last Open. And it was a deck that appealed to me. I've been playing the Blue-Red Eldrazi ramp deck, and as much as I really enjoyed that deck and have done well with it, the Green-White Tokens matchup has just been too iffy, and I wanted a deck that had a little bit more game against that and against some of the human strategies as well. So I went to this deck, sporting the 4 copies of Languish. And let me tell you, the deck is sweet. It made me sort of reconsider a couple of cards, one of them even being Sylvan Advocate, which I think, I already knew that card was good. I already played it a lot. But that deck really showed me how you could use Sylvan Advocate as a purely endgame card. Pretty much never casting it on turn 2, only casting it as a 6-drop. But you're playing 8 manlands, so you want to cast it after you could already successfully cast your Languishes and start I had multiple lines where I had tons of mana and I was dark petitioning for an Advocate so I could hit them with 2 Shambling Vents to put my life total back up to a healthy range.
Yeah, that's definitely a list that plays Sylvan Advocate in a slightly different role than some of the other green decks. Like you said, I mean, you in that deck you may want to hold on to them a little bit longer so they can survive a Languish. Obviously you're playing Languish in your deck, so you don't want to just run them out there.
Right.
Whereas most of the other decks in the format, they're wanting to, they might not have that many early drops. So you want to get your Sylvan Advocate out there, it can block, against humans.
And there's certain matchups where you want to do that, and even use it to bait more creatures into the Languish. But
yeah,
it was just really interesting. I sort of wondered how in Standard you can continue on that dynamic. How far could you push that card? So pretty interesting. But I definitely started off. So I had my 2 buys, and I played against Green-White Tokens, and I may have punted game 1. It's really hard. It's one of those games where it's really hard to see the future. But I took a Anissa off of Transgress against Greenwood tokens instead of the Gideon when I had a Languish in hand, and a Sylvan Advocate, and I think a Dragon Lord. And the idea was that he had no spells that could cast until turn 4. I would get to play my Advocate the next turn and have Manlands up, and was live to infinite draws against a Gideon. So it was like, all right, we'll just make him not have any board, and I'll get to play this game. And he untapped the next turn and like drew the Declaration Stone for to be able to kill my Advocate, and then I drew 3 more Languishes and had 4 in my hand when I died game 1. So impossible to see the future, but had it taken the Gideon, I get to play a much longer game. I win game 2 easily and then mold a 5 game 3, and don't really put up much of a fight against his curve. So that was awkward. The next round I played against Right Humans, which is, Dave and I tested that matchup a fair amount. It's kind of a coin flip. I lost the coin flip both times. I will say that I also played against one of the most unpleasant human beings I've ever encountered in my entire life. So kudos on that. If you ever hear this, you did it. I'm not going to go any further than that. I've told that story too many times, but try not to be trash.
Yeah, it was. I was there. I can verify it was not pleasant.
Again, was nowhere close to beating this person. Still one of the most unpleasant interactions
just
I've ever had.
Needlessly negative,
So,
but anyway.
Anyways, I managed to win a couple matches after that. The crazy thing is the matches I even lost with this deck, like I was enjoying playing the game, and I definitely had like some really cool lines to consider. So I'd play the deck again. It had a lot of play to it. I feel like it's just one of those things where a couple of games could have gone my way that didn't. I played against Black White Control, and that was awesome. That was really fun to play against, but also really good. I played against Bant Humans, and I beat a triple Collected Company draw. Like it was not even close.
Nice.
I played Grixis Control. That wasn't close. So like, there's a lot of decks where this deck was just like it was like laughable. Like, oh, this doesn't matter what you're doing. So, I lost to Red Green Ramp. In like hilarious fashion, like a game where like I played 3 discard effects and infinite obliteration on my opponent. He had no cards in hand except for lands, and his only spells he had cast were Nissa's Nissa's Pilgrimage and an explosive vegetation, and he had drawn 2 the shrines. So with no spells in hand, he untapped and drew an Ulamog and cast it on turn 6. I was just staring at him. I thought he was trolling me when he was counting his mana up. He's like, no, I actually drew it. I was like, oh, all right. This is cool. So, sad times. But I will say, like, a couple of things with the deck really sort of had me addressing some things in the format a little bit differently. I had read some things that Jeff and a couple other players had written about that deck and the Seasons Past deck. And I was telling Morgan it was sort of also eye-opening, like, how people were treating discard effects of that deck. And it was like Jeff himself had mentioned that you don't board, like, people said, how many, like, discard effects are you bringing in against Black-White Control? And he's like, none. And I was like, what? And he was like, you want every draw to be live against them. If you're drawing discard effects against them, it's terrible. The only time you want more discard effects are against Ramp because of their spells. Or in the mirror, we're taking Seasons Past is the difference between winning or losing. And it changed how I was boarding against Black-White, and that matchup got so much easier. And sort of like, you still wanted like the 1 or 2 that are already in your deck, so you could like, at critical points, you could go like search for one. Like if you knew you couldn't deal with a Sorin, or you had one to chain back with your Seasons Past. Mm-hmm. But it was really interesting, and I appreciated that sort of sideboard advice. And again, sort of had me rethinking how to board and control matchups, because in Esper control, like you needed to be able to land your spells through counter magic, so duresses were super important. But that's not what's happening in these mirror matches. So I sort of I just wasn't rethinking it, and then it was. So I think I learned a lot playing in this event, even though I didn't do very well.
I think that makes a lot of sense where you're talking about the discard spells, that it's almost like in Modern. I feel like if you're playing like a Black-Green X deck in the mirror,
you
like
out in the mirror,
you don't
right?
want those because, more often than not, you're both going to be playing like a top deck war. And if you draw a Thoughtseize late game, it's not
Terrible.
very good.
Yeah. Just terrible.
So,
and I played my game 2 against a Black-White Control opponent. He duressed me, transgressed me, thought not of me, and like transgressed me again, and the game wasn't close.
yeah.
Because like every spell I drew after that wasn't like, oh, I guess I'll transgress you too. Like that didn't happen, and that felt really good. So yeah, I learned a fair amount. I definitely, so my Grixis opponent who I beat, I actually conceded to with 3 losses because Morgan's event was done, and I had no intention of driving back. We were staying in Northeast Ohio. I did not plan on driving back at 6-3 because you have to 6-0 to cash. And some people did. Shout out to Jonathan Benson. He 6-0 day 2 to manage to get into that cash and go 12-3, but it's trash, Wizards. Please fix this. No one needs a day 2 at 6-3. It hurts the event. End of piece. And I'm saying this as a person who literally is dropping at X-3 because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's really hard for them to kind of go back after what they have said to justify doing that, which is they have done it so that people feel like they have accomplished something.
So like, how about meet in the middle then? It used to be the top 64 players or anybody who's, or X and 2, right? Well, like make the cut wider than like the top, 180 people or X and 2 or something. Something that fixes some of the events that are super huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I
that
don't
you don't end up
disagree
with
with that.
300 people on day 2 because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You have what used to be an old open as your day 2, and that doesn't make sense because then you have people who aren't going to cash, but also knocking out people who had really good day 1s because of like the way that like they got a loss and then the way the pairings end up working, and it's very frustrating. So I feel bad for people who don't cash because they they lose the first 2 rounds of like day 2 and then they get bounced into the bracket where the breakers go literally to HE double hockey sticks.
Yeah.
I don't know what word Morgan's going to beep, so I tried to be nice.
I mean, you can probably say hell.
Hell.
It's like a place.
It's for children.
it's hopefully not.
That's what Pat Benatar said.
Wow. Did she?
That's actually the name of the song.
Wow.
I think it's Pat Benatar. I'll Google.
All right. Well, while you Google, we'll continue talking about GP Pittsburgh and the people who did very well at the said event. So the entire tournament was won by Evan. Confirm. That's
Confirmed. It's the real thing.
Oh.
Not. Okay, never mind.
Anyway, by Evan Peter
I would say Petrie.
Petrie. Sure.
Pietro. That's not it, actually.
That's not it. He is not Quicksilver. Evan Petrie, playing green-white tokens. You tricked me.
Mr. Dish.
Yeah. And he defeated Pascal Maynard, playing Band Humans, in the finals.
Yeah. He denied Pascal of platinum status, which
Ouch.
he would have got if he won the tournament.
Wow.
I mean, like he's in a pretty good position to do it at the PT. So.
He's going to the GP. I think it was factoring in the PT. Or
Well, yeah,
he
but
can still do well at
that's
the PT.
min, though.
And do
That's
it.
the 3
Right,
min,
Yeah,
right,
yeah. He's going to the GP this weekend, so he can still get it.
Yeah, fair enough. Does he have any slots up? He's top 8 at 2 this season, right?
Well, just like he can get pro points.
Yeah, but I don't know. He has to probably do pretty well. I have to assume he's slotted all of his. Like he's already used a slot, so he'd have to do better than his
right.
min slot, right?
I don't know.
I'd have to look that up, but I would assume he's filled his slot.
We'll see.
Some other notable names that we have in the top 8 are Alexa Telerov, playing Sultai midrange, and Steve Rubin playing, none other than green white tokens. So why change? Why change a good thing?
He did. I mean, he only ruined the format by himself. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah,
He was the
Different
only one.
Steve, by the way. We like Emrakul's husband, Steve. I don't know about this, Mr. Rubin. I don't know.
I don't know about this other Steve.
Did Steve tell you that?
Steve. The top 8 was 3 green white tokens, 3 banned humans, 1 banned collect company, and then 1 Sultai midrange. So
if you're counting at home, that's 16 out of the possible 16 decks between the 2 GPs that had green in them.
yeah, green real good, green good. Play green, get good. Anything that we want to kind of pick apart at the top 8 level?
Not really.
Okay. How about 9 through 32? Anything that we want to pick
There
apart?
was a sweet list.
Yeah. You want a Craig Couple?
Was that the Eldrazi deck?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's load it up. He got what, 11th?
11.
So this looked like one of like the sample decks that Patrick Chapin wrote about like before Shadows over Innistrad came out, where it was like an Eldrazi deck that's just all colorless. Like it has a swamp in it for some reason, though there's no black mana at all. So I don't know why it's not just a waste, but yeah, it's just completely colorless.
Just throw people off, man.
Yeah. So this is like Titan's Presence, Ulamog. This is like how they drew it up in R&D.
See, Oblivion, so we're getting some love again.
Yeah, Oblivion. Yeah, Hedron. So yeah, this is the deck: 4 Hedron Crawler, 4 Matter Reshaper, 4 Thought-Knot Seer, 4 Oblivion Sower, 3 Ulamog, 1 Kozilek. So it goes all the way up. And then the spells are 4 Hedron Archive, 4 Spatial Contortion, 3 Titan's Presence, 2 Warping Whale. And then the mana base is just kind of an amalgam of all the various colorless producing lands that you have in Standard. So, Spawning Bed, Westfell Abbey, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Yeah.
Man, I'm trying really hard to figure out what that's for. Like, I have no idea.
And for us, it's clear for us to be like, what's this for?
I
The
mean,
swamp,
you could
yeah.
argue that like Oblivion Sower might hit mainlands, so sometimes you want a swamp to activate them. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
when I saw swamp, I actually assumed it was going to have blighted fens, but it doesn't have those, so it's kind of weird.
yeah.
But,
Whatever.
No, the deck is nifty. Do you see the sideboard?
Thraben Gargoyle?
And Gruesome Slaughter?
Yeah, Gruesome Slaughter. I was like, oh yeah. Fight.
Fight round 1. Yeah, that's certainly an interesting deck. Something. It's nice to see something like new show up, even if it is a bit out there, not of this world, you might say.
That's true. It's honestly, I mean, if you look at all the lists in both of these GPs, and this one like really just sticks out. You're just like, what is going on here? This is, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this do well, really in anything.
Yeah, for quite.
And
yeah,
to finish 11th place at a GP that was almost 1,400 players.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and it is important to note that obviously Mr. Krimple's very, very talented magician, for sure, and certainly getting some more renown. As of recently, he got second in the Invitational. Now shows up here at 11th, and he's also a prominent SCG commentator as well. So
I think you're confusing two people.
what? That's
You're thinking of Craig Krempel. This is Chris Kemple.
oh, geez.
That's
Sorry.
his evil twin. So
oh, okay.
that's why he's playing Eldrazi.
Craig Krempels with a mustache. I got it. Yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to.
Krampus?
Yeah. Yes, I did have that completely mixed up. Never mind. I rescind everything I said.
Hey, but still, that's
Good job.
It's a great accomplishment.
Yes.
I've never done this well in GP.
Good job for Chris.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I confused you with someone else. My bad.
Since we're looking at the top 16, can we also give a shout out to Connor Bowman?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's congrats and condolences to Mr. Bowman.
Tip of the hat, wag of the finger. So
Yeah.
he was undefeated day 1. Was he the only undefeated?
He was all the way up to 12-0.
Yeah. Oh God.
And
that drop the
lost
last
the last 3.
Wheels fell off.
Yeah, wheels came off. So yeah, it definitely sucks. But it was cool.
A great run, and he's a really solid like he's a guy who's very, very nice, but also pretty quiet. And he's had a lot of good finishes around here. So you probably not heard of this guy, but if you sat down across from him, he's real good. So
yeah, I lost to him in the finals at the Comic Town Winter Classic, which is the first tournament in that series. So yeah, I mean, really solid player. He's had some pretty good SCG Open finishes as well.
Yeah.
I know, around here anyway.